You have like a board meeting with your agents. You're like, how's that product going? It's good. Listen, I think you need to cut down on costs.
If I just be like, agent, run Facebook ads, it's like, holy shit, like just like a human that has never done it before. And it's also just like, it's very rare you can find somebody that can make good creative, that can like actually manage the ad account, that can analyze the data, that like can do all those pieces. So
like vibe coding from 0 to 80% is pretty cool. 80 to production and live is like a chasm, and unless you know what you're doing,
basically crashed out. I got banned from Etsy for mining their data. They weren't stoked about that. I still have a ban, which is hilarious.
Oh man, oh my goodness,
one of those days,
it's
man.
You.
You doing all right?
I know. No, totally. Yeah, I am. I don't know how you are these days, but I am in the mode where 4:30 a.m. my brain goes, oh, you should fire up some Cloud Code tabs.
Literally,
like
in the same. I woke up at 2:30 this morning, and I was like, oh, here I could go and have this craft agent that like does this thing.
Oh, totally, yeah. And then my wife's like, what time should we go? Oh, it's 4:30, and here's what I did. Here's what I've already had 3 coffees. Like,
it's ridiculous. We're in this with this private equity company, and they're like, hey, we need to like source business owners that are wanting to sell their businesses. And we're like, okay, cool. How can we do that? And this is literally like this morning. I was like, oh, I bet you I could go and look at the site map changes of like business sites, like sell my business sites. And then from that public information, like have Exa basically be like, this company is at this location that is described like this. And then find the LinkedIn profile of the person and then cold email them. And it was like, yes, was the answer. And so literally like built that agent this morning for them, which was ridiculous. But I don't think people understand what's about to happen with all this marketing agent stuff. No. It's crazy, man. So.
But don't you in your brain a lot of times end up becoming the GIF of like, all right, wake up, Jarvis. Let's go.
Exactly.
Come on, like, and you just start like moving stuff around. So good to see you again, sir. What would you like to build today?
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, you know what's funny is when I was looking back, so I'm going to get into Graft.
Yeah.
And the birth of Graft and what I love about it and where you guys are headed. But funny enough, I was looking at your background, sort of, understanding your trajectory. I emailed you 2 years ago at Swell AI and was like, I love it. It's great. And funny enough, I had
just bought it back
off
and
of,
we're like, we're resurrecting it. We sold it to an operator and it just kind of went to a terrible place. And we're like, all right, our names were still sort of connected to it. And we're like, pretty quick, we're like, all right, we need to get it back and like refurbish it. So that is what it's been happening for like the last 2 months.
It's like, it was one of the biggest pains of, podcasting, is trying to figure all that out. I love the product. And funny, and then you and I were talking about Danny Grant today, and in the email that I sent you 2 years ago, I said I found you off the exchange with Danny on X.
Oh, nice. Small world, man.
Small world. Well, yeah, I want to hear typically one of the things that we dive into that I love, I love Diary CEO and Rich Roll and all those, but what I really love to hear about is that like the week you have an aha and you're like, oh man, is this going to be the thing? Like, am I going to buy some domain names? And now this is what I'm doing now. Like I'm putting everything into into this basket, and then
I just bought trackableqrcode.com because I have no compulsion control. Because I'm like, all right, I'm literally gonna have an agent build it. Like, I'm gonna have a Graft agent like go and like build the actual product and then market the product and just see if we can run it autonomously, which is hilarious.
And then just be like, how's it going? You have like a board meeting with your agents. You're like, how's that product going? It's good. Listen, I think you need to cut down on costs.
Yeah. Totally. Anymore, honestly, when I'm like thinking about companies, it's like either like this is a problem that I'm facing that like, and there's a certain amount of people that have that same profile that this like are, they're also trying to solve the solution for, or it's just like based off of search intent. Like, for example, that domain name, like the trackable QR code, it's like getting, I think it's like 1,200 searches per month and it's like is growing really rapidly. So I'm like, oh, this is like a problem that people are trying to solve. When you look at the solutions that exist that are before them, it's like Bitly, right, as an example. They're not really focused on that. And then it's like, oh, who's buying this? It's like restaurants and like, companies that are sending like I didn't realize this, but a lot of like consumer packaged goods companies are starting to put QR codes on their products as a way to like, they have some offer that like takes the user further, et cetera.
Yep.
And so
Or
they
even
need a
you'll get
way
like
to
a Ralph Lauren, that
exactly,
sort of has like, this is exactly what it is. And that's so great because you think being able to just actually shoot all the stuff in your closet,
totally,
is
totally.
that's, I love it.
Yeah. So anyway,
Um,
stuff like that is kind of my origin of like when I'm like, okay, is this a brand or a company? And I think there's like a bunch of different components of the, or different levels of this of like, this is a fun side quest thing, and then there's like, oh, this is like got the biology for like a large company. And I think that's just like a pulse thing. Like as a, I don't call myself an entrepreneur. I just build businesses and like, but at its core, it's like you as you do this more and more, you start to get an understanding of the market and like what actually has, again, the biology to be a large organization, or what's going to be like, this can be a cool side project that makes
yep.
whatever, $8,000 a month, and it's
It's
a
got
Chrome extension.
legs enough to get to the eighth
Exactly.
floor, or whatever, which could be a good flip. But then, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So I don't know
So
if that
what,
answers your
like,
question directly, but
and so funny enough, going back, I want to go back to sort of like upbringing in school, and are there parts of your DNA and your upbringing that sort of, is built into this? One other small world thing is I interviewed Tara
oh, nice, cool. Tara's
on
amazing.
the podcast.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
Max,
yeah.
my
So
co-founder, and I, like, we met at Rupa Health. I was like employee 9 or 10, and he was right after me, and so we basically, who recruited both of us. His name's Kobe Conrad. He's running this company called Sunflower Sober now, and but anyways, it's like, you need to meet Max. I think you guys would get along, and like immediately, basically, like we were both into techno and skiing, so we just kind of became friends. I think that immediately, like while we were still working at Rupa, we
wait,
like a
are we
month
best friends
later,
now?
yeah,
Yeah,
basically,
I
it was
think
pretty
we are.
funny. I mean, he probably wants to kill me some days. He's the better half, man. Where like, I'm out here just kind of running around on the marketing side, and he's
Oh my gosh,
the slow and steady on the engineering piece. But
That's
anyways,
Martina. That's Martina on that side.
it's needed,
I'm the
man.
one,
It's
like,
needed.
she'll show me something that she just built and it's amazing. And I'm like, oh, you know what phase 7 of this could be? And she's like, you know what? Can we just like,
Can we stop? Yeah,
can we just hold on for a second?
exactly, man.
So
Exactly.
like, wait, like, where'd you grow up, and was there anything in your, family dynamics, or just in the way you were built that was like, oh, I love figuring stuff out and, solving problems, or like, where do you
Always
think some
loved
of this, like,
puzzles and trend
hmm,
analysis was always the things I was interested in. Like, give me a bunch of data. What does all this mean? And like, how do I synthesize it? I studied economics in college. I think I was wanting to do engineering, and then like finance, right? And then I was like basically the thought was, how do I make money, and how do I have a skill to sell? Um, and really, like, how does money work, and how do I have a skill to sell? And then I ended up getting an economics degree, which makes zero sense. But anyway, yeah. I mean, background wise, I grew up in a small town in North Idaho called Coeur d'Alene. It's now become super crazy popular since the Kardashians went there during COVID, and it's basically like turned into this, you know, suburb of LA and San Francisco, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it's like an old mining and timber town. My parents were like, from LA originally, and then basically we're like, we want to get out into nature. They were both kind of dirtbags, as I would describe them, a little hippie. And yeah, so we did that. My Both of them are like built companies. That's all I really know. I've started more companies than I've had jobs.
yeah,
But yeah, I
the
really got
pain is
into.
actually shutting them down, and like,
Oh my god,
doing
it's the
all the,
worst.
like,
Yeah,
all the
man.
paper, trying to back out of Google Workspaces.
We just rolled a bunch of credit cards like recently for a bunch of stuff because we're like, we don't even know where any of this is, and so we're like, cool, we're just gonna roll all of these and like just see what happens. Whatever breaks, we'll go and fix, and then restart. But
That's great.
it's kind of funny. That was literally like, we did that like 2 months ago, and I did update a credit card this morning that was like needed for one of the companies. But anyways, yeah, so it started that. Always was just kind of like buying and selling stuff. First, in high school, I learned how to do like graphic design. Kind of taught myself Photoshop and Illustrator, and then figured out how to do screen printing, and then got a direct to garment printer. And then I was like, how do I sell things on the internet? And then I ended up figuring out how to mine Etsy for sales data. At the time, it was public, so you could see the best-selling products, and I was basically doing a script to do extraction for that. And then I was pulling that, and we would remix the bestsellers based off of the target keywords that they were going after. And then from there, I was like, cool. I was literally like running this out of my basement, and like we were like 20 and making 10 grand a month. You feel like God, right? So that was happening, and then I was like, all right, cool. Like, how do I not do the operations? And so was really early on print on demand, and basically rode that wave when that happened. Basically crashed out. I got banned from Etsy for mining their data. They weren't stoked about that. I still have a ban, which is hilarious. I like every year I'll just try to like sign up and see what happens, but all my stuff is flagged. But
lifetime Etsy ban. I don't, you know, if you need to call me after, we could talk about it. Like, you know,
if you, but yeah, so from that, really, honestly, it was the best thing that could have happened, because it learned that like brand was such an important thing that you need to be building along with selling the products. I was basically just selling commodities, which is chill, but you can make money doing that. But you want to build like something that has value that kind of compounds. Brand comes from that. Ended up working. I was just doing like, honestly, I went into the fine dining industry for a minute, and was like working at this hotel, and was like, I think I want to do this. Like, it was like so intense and like very, just very intense. And it was the type of, I kind of thrive in environments like that. So there was this like moment where I was like, all right, I'm going to go. This is like what I'm going to pursue. And I could, you could go and travel on that. And that's what I was interested in. But anyway, ended up meeting this boss, though. His name's Jeff Reynolds, and he'd gone through Y Combinator on, done a startup, like basically went out into the valley, met God, came back and was selling it to Fortune 500 companies. Here's how you do like digital strategy and like adoption, right? And so nice. I basically went and did some contract work for him, and he's like, cool, here's I remember it so vividly. It was like a bathtub manufacturer, like so unsexy when you think about it as a product. And he's like, I was like, yeah, I think Pinterest will work for it. Like, I think you can, like, they were trying to launch this new like shower base that was like a smaller model. And I was like, I think we could make like a ebook that's basically like, here's how to do like a shower, in your van or your RV, right? Because I was like, this like
nice
way that they were trying to do it. And I was like, I think Pinterest would work for this. And he's like, awesome, here's the test budget. And it was like, just a stupid amount of money. And because it's like this massive, I mean, they sell to like Holiday Inn, right? Like, that's like, the scale that we're talking about, where they're like, cool, we need like, a couple thousand shower bases. It's like, or 100,000 shower bases, or whatever the size of these end up being. So anyways, through that, like, built this massive lead list on like from Pinterest. He's basically like, what are you doing right now? And I'm like, I don't know, man, I'm just like kind of dicking around. He's like, if you want a job, like, come work for me. I was like, cool. And so anyways, it's really like where I cut my teeth and learn B2B marketing. Like, how do you sell over long sales cycles? Like, how do you do account-based marketing? Like, where are all these levers that you can pull? And how do you like service, large organizations, right, with this types of services? So been like 4 years with him doing that. And just basically like, my job was, here are these budgets, like these are the outcomes they want, like go and figure out like, how do we do distribution? And it was really just like I lived in a studio apartment and I just worked. So fast
that's
forward,
the hacker apartment lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. And anyways, just did that. And then I left this company. I was just doing consulting. I was chasing snow for the winter. I was actually living out of a van at the time, and with my friend, and we were just like chasing the storms on the West Coast. And my friend Cody called me, which was he was working at Rupa Health, and he's like, hey, what are you doing now? And I'm like, nothing, man, I'm dirtbagging. And he's like, do you want to like come help me do this? Like, at Rupa. And I was like, no, I don't want a job, right? Like, I don't want to do anything. I'll talk to you later, right? Basically. And he's like, let me send you the data, and you can see like, what the composition of the company looks like from a growth standpoint. So he sent me the data, and it was just ridiculous, right? Like, it was like a curve that just looks stupid. And I mean, it's the best curve that you can have, where it's like slow incremental month over month growth with like 3 to 4% compounding. And then like, this massive curve. And I'm like, what'd you do? And he's like, I turned on ads, Cody. And I was like, holy shit. And so I was like, send me that on a Friday. On Sunday, I was like, I'm in, let me know. And yeah, I was like, again, still living like in the, in the van at the time of all this. And yeah, he basically was like, awesome, I'll set you up a call with Tara on Wednesday. I had the call, got the offer letter Thursday, bought a ticket Friday, moved to San Francisco that Monday, slept on a friend's couch for 2 weeks, and then basically we just went in, ran up Rupa
Oh,
and did that. So was there, learned so
I
much. It was
love those things though. If you think about you being in the van and sort of getting that data sent over, there's that like I get the feeling you're so tapped in also to just your you know that you listen and these signals and you know when to sort of activate stuff, but it really sounds like one of those where you saw it and you went, okay, here we go. Like you know what I mean? Like, and those are so important from an entrepreneurial perspective, like to not like sit and debate all the things, in your mind, right? But just when you hear and feel something, you're like, all right, done. Chapter
Yeah, as
changed.
soon as you have signal, I think that's the like most important thing is to act on it, right? Like, and it's the hardest thing as well. Like signal and noise, especially right now, it's so frothy. Like, you know, what is the right thing to be building is the hardest thing in the world because we can build anything. I mean, we literally had a product meeting like 2 weeks ago where it was like, fuck, like what do we do? Do we go, you know, because it's just you can
Well,
build
four
anything.
seven's out now with auto approve, so who can?
Exactly. It's like where does this turn into? But I think more and more like I'm realizing it's just like a business at its core is always the simplest thing. Like it's basically like what does the market want to buy and like how, you know, how do I sell it? Like how do I get in front of them basically? And if you just like look at that as that first principle, then you know you have all the signal that you need for like what I should be working on. And so like we're finding this right now. Like we're like we just added this agent feature on top of us. We were data pipeline, data warehouse, and we were building this like BI tool. If people were interested, we were, you know, we were growing, but we kept having people like, cool, I have this insight now. I want to go act on it. And so it's like, yeah, like that's what everybody wants to do. Right. And like we were seeing this within our, like even our distribution, our go to market, where they're like, hey, like I want the full system. Like I want the, you know, I want the GTM engineering basically. And so we started like, you know, in the last like, literally like 2 weeks offering that as like a, hey, we'll forward deploy, we'll build out these systems and processes for you and build these AI, you know, agents for marketing. And it's markets just been like, everybody wants it, right? Like, cause it's, you're telling me I can like basically hire you guys and I get you know, an infinite marketing team that scales, like that's based off of the actual outcomes that we're looking for. And I have that feedback loop. And I think the thing that's changed with all of this is like for the first time, like there's all those AIS like SDRs that came out in the first like wave of all this. And people are like, oh, like you can't have this because it fails. Like they and it's they basically like look at that as like the example of like why this won't work in this like system that isn't like finite. And it's really funny because when anybody that has that opinion, I'm immediately like, oh, you're a rookie. Like you don't realize that like growth is just like I'm just doing engineering, right? Like at its core. It's like I have an outcome that I'm trying to get. I have limited resources of time, money, and mental energy. And then like how am I basically like distributing, you know, those resources most effectively to create that outcome? So that's just a system. If it's a system, then I can, you know, turn it into a process, into software, et cetera. So anyway, to go back to the AI SDR thing though, what I find really interesting is when you do like a post-mortem of what actually happened, the agent was performing unbelievably well. Like it was getting leads. The leads were just terrible quality. So basically it's self-optimized into like, you know, it's a great example of this is like if you run Google, if you've ever ran Google ads, you can have this happen where it basically will self-optimize. The ML will self-optimize into like a subset of your audience that it's bidding on. That is like creating a sign-up event at a cheaper cost, but it's not. It's like the wrong person to get in, basically. So
it thinks it's winning because it thinks you want lowest CAC ever. You know,
exactly. And so it's like if you have the wrong signal going back to it, then that's like it's not the agent's fault. It's just it's doing its job, right? It's just like a human. It's just basically it's optimizing for the wrong metric. And so what we've kind of realized now is like if you have this whole data like solution where it's like all my data's here and I can provide that to the agent and I can be like, agent, I'm trying to make revenue. Here's all of the resources that you have available. Here's the systems that you go. So to give an example, like we just on this live stream like 2 days ago, I built this AI for SEO agent. This agent for SEO. So it basically like does keyword research. It researches what's ranking on page 1 of Google. Then I gave it like a transcript of me talking about the specific topic category, like how AI is changing Facebook ads. This is an exact example, just to be explicit. And then based on that, it writes the content. It publishes the content, and then it like calls the web indexing API to index the content. And then we have another agent that's then looking at the live data, optimizing that article based off of the feedback loop that we're getting from Google Search Console. And then from that, on top of that, there's another agent that's basically looking at, okay, what pages are actually making signups? It's looking at the PostHog data. What pages are actually turning into revenue? Let's have that go influence the next round of creative. So like it creates this feedback loop, right? And when you look at any like good go-to-market like system, that exact process. It's like I try things, I look at what works, I do less of what doesn't and more of what does, and I just like repeat that growth loop. And then to make a company grow really fast, you're basically just layering on those growth curves, right? So I do that one channel, and then I layer on channel 2, and I layer on channel 3. You never stop what you're doing. You're just layering on these next elements. So anyway, yeah, I think that it's just like that has been the realization that like we have come to, and I think everybody has come to. And then the infrastructure around that ends up being like the hardest part, right? Where it's like, okay, how do I actually give my agents the things that they need so that they can go and do, you know, these tasks? And also it's just like nothing is built for this. Like if we had this conversation like 6 months ago and somebody was like, oh, do I pick HubSpot or Salesforce? And I'm like, okay, it depends on where your company size is at. But like, you know, HubSpot historically, it's like I would pick it because the UI is more like user friendly, and like I can do more within there, like as a normie that's not technical. Now I'd just be like, absolutely not. All you're looking for is like what has the most API endpoints, and like what can control the product at like the largest like scale via the API, and like because agents are going to be.
And we were talking about Lightfield. Like that's one of those.
Exactly.
I was looking at CRMs, and I was just meeting with the co-founder of Lightfield, and basically what you're getting is a Claude Code plus an MCP that happens to be a CRM, and you know what I mean, and just being that brain instead of the all the drop downs.
And what is
and
software even too? Like at this point, like we're like
yeah.
I mean, I haven't touched HubSpot, right? But I've been using it. Like I'm in sales cycles right now. I'm literally living out a graph that has an API key to HubSpot. And I'm like, that is my whole interaction with it. And then I'm like, agent, like keep tabs on my deal flow. Like tell me what I should be focusing on. Like who hasn't followed up, like, or like I can build out these systems on top of this, right? And
this idea, like 2 years ago, when when ChatGPT really sort of emerged into the zeitgeist, this idea that like website pages, the way that we know them now, are going to go away, but just this mythical thing. But what's interesting, it doesn't happen the way that you think it's going to happen. There are no websites. It just so happens that the thing that you used to go in and do all the drop downs for, you just never touch it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think the other thing that's like we're realizing too, and we're getting this feedback from users, is they're like, hey, I want the software to evolve and mold to the like what I need it to be. So like we built this dashboarding solution initially, and then we have people that are like, hey, I want to add this, like basically like a drop down filtering mechanism. And we're over here and we're like, we're getting in the way of what the user can just ask the agent to add that to the dashboard. And then it just like does that, right? Like we just give the agent a skill so it knows how to like dashboard like effectively. But then those final, mile like solutions that they're trying, that are really, custom and specific to them, you have to almost make like dynamically generating UIs to do this. And so like how we're solving this right now is like, okay, say I want to do a dashboard. So we built a dashboarding product initially. That's like this like very specific, like, it's like components and modules. And it's basically just like you can vibe code a dashboard was the idea, right? But now like where we're going with this is we're like, hey, we're just going to give the agent, like, here's an endpoint where you can create an artifact. And like you can basically go and design whatever dashboard like the user wants, but you can host it here. And like this is in the safe space, so it's like it's not being like publicly created or added to like a website, but that can be shared if you want to. Like you can have like a shareable link if you want to like give that to somebody external. But what that quickly does is then you realize like, oh, it can make any document type, right? So like I'm talking about a dashboard that's on top of your live data. So say you're trying to do reporting on your paid ads, right? And you're like, cool, I build a custom reporting paid ad dashboard. But I can then be like, agent, build me a slide deck that has these charts like as PNGs in this slide deck and gives a report. And like, I want you to create that on every Monday and send that to my client. And so because it has this dynamic UI generation, it's like now it's like any asset that you need that's like a snapshot in time or a deliverable, it has the ability to go and create that for you. And it just turns into this like really and also the surface area gets really scary as like as a company and a founder. How do I create a consistent experience with that when like the UI is dynamically generating and then it's like dependent on the user to have like the right way that it's describing the output. But like, again, what we're finding more and more is companies are like, hey, like we want this done for us. Just like, can you just airdrop in and build out these solutions and then maintain and run them for us? And like, instead of us going and hiring 10 people and having to pay those salaries, we're going to pay you like 1/10 of the cost basically to do that.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that, and that's where you and I sort of re-intersected, was when I was right at the place where Martina and I spent, January through March sort of heads down rebuilding for enterprise and teams, because the one-to-one accounts weren't working. And then it was ready and we started selling to businesses and businesses started taking off. So we thought, okay, we really need to build the go-to-market, and it needs to be not just me talking to people. And so I started looking around and I hired a few teams, and the few teams that came in were, as I told you, it was like the older school, like, let's take a list and put it into go high level, and then let's email those people and let's see if there's any movement.
totally.
You know what I mean? Or whatever. And you sort of spend like 2 weeks doing that or whatever it is. And it's, and so you think about those old cycles of standing up SDRs and AEs and then teaching them and training them. They got to come in the culture. They got to get in a Notion. They got to do an email box right or whatever. And how far away that is from being able to spin something up and get signal this afternoon.
Totally.
And start iterating on it.
I think social has changed that too. Like we didn't even have this like, done for you service or this forward deployed service. And I was like, basically just like, do people want this? Like, let me just like literally put it on Twitter and LinkedIn, and I'm going to throw up a tally form and we'll see like what happens. And like, we got like over 100 people to inbound. We're like, oh, there's an appetite for this. Cause they're like, everybody wants, I think this is the thing too, with all this AI agent stuff, is like, everybody wants this. But they conceptually understand it, but the actual like build out and the implementation of this, the gap between that is just so large. They just want the outcome and they just want to pay for the outcome. Like, can I just buy
But it's just
outcome?
like vibe coding, right? Like everybody said, you even had investors being like, can't someone just vibe code this? And not understanding the idea that like vibe coding from 0 to 80% is pretty cool. 80 to production and live is like a chasm. And unless you know what you're doing.
How do I do agent evals so that it hits brand style guidelines? Like, how do I do agent evals so that like the image that's coming out of Nano Banana from, these two different API endpoints that we're hitting, like there's a feedback loop where it's like, oh, you're not, we have an agent that's observing and it's like, you're not hitting these brand style guidelines. Like you have to go back and like do these modifications. Cool. Now it passed that eval, goes to step 2 where that's uploaded. Like all of those pieces that when you get down into like the weeds with it, because you talk about like an AI agent for like SEO as an example, and people are like, that's easy. Like I give it a keyword and it writes it, and then they do this, and they're like, it doesn't rank, it doesn't, I'm not getting anything to happen from it. And then when you look under the hood of like what is good content, there's actually so much that's happening to actually make that right, or like what is
the
good
difference
marketing?
Between an agent conceptually, which feels like a robot that does instructions, which what you're talking about is actually a special team of agents with instructions and orchestration that are working in concert, which is totally different, which is not what people understand with the idea of just agents.
For sure. We think about it as like agent swarms where they're like, and this is like, again, like we're very early. I'm barely sleeping. We're figuring out like, how do we do all this? Right. But like what we're realizing is like, okay, if I just be like agent, run Facebook ads, it's like, holy shit, like just like a human that has never done it before. And it's also just like, it's very rare you can find somebody that can make good creative, that can like actually manage the ad account, that can analyze the data, that like can do all those pieces. So it's like,
and you wouldn't know that for at least 2-3 months until you really got into working with someone. Yeah.
And so what we're finding though is like, if you give a scope of work to the agent where it's like your job is research, right? So like you are researching the pain points of our target customers on social media and the outcomes that they want on social media. That's all your job is. You just basically like scour the internet and like ingest all, you build a corpus of information. So that gets handed off to, the script writing agent, and their job is to write scripts based off of that. And they also like have access to the HeyGen API so they can make the raw video file. And then, there's like a loop where it's like, make the HeyGen, make the AI UGC ad, remove the silence, like add captions. Okay. That then gets like uploaded into, the Facebook ads account, totally separate agent managing the ads account. Here's these rules that you have. Like if the CPM hits 50, the ad goes off. If it's like, you see a CPA of X price, basically promote that to its own ad set, delegate budget to that. And then, if you start to see a CPMR that's going like higher, like at the end of the ad's life cycle after 30 days, then I want you to automatically turn that off, because it's basically, we're seeing ad fatigue happen, right? If I try to get an agent to like think about all of that and do all of that, impossible. If I try to get a human to do that, impossible. It's just very hard. And then the other layer on top of that is like, okay, now I have an agent that's like needs to analyze what's actually working and give that feedback loop to the rest of them. So they're like, ads like this work based on what you're seeing. Like, how do you do that loop? And so how we're starting to approach this is like, imagine you have like, just like you would have a team. I have like a team of agents, and they're like almost in their own little sandbox, and they're working on, their jobs and tasks. And I have these like ICs, and then I have a manager. And then above that, you probably have like, okay, like this whole other, analytics system where it's like, that's looking at Facebook ads, it's looking at Google ads, it's looking at SEO, and looking at the composition of the entire organization. But again, I think these are all the things that
it's not a mental model that we actually are used to, which is why I think it's so interesting that you're on the the cusp of this wave of figuring out how this is all coming together. It's not a mental model that we're used to think, hey, this afternoon over coffee, I'm going to stand up a micro company of 12 and have them start doing all the work and to know what to do. You know what I mean? Like, that's
also
just not
the speed. Yeah. The speed of this is crazy too. Cause like we, talking to a startup this morning on a sales call, and they're like, yo, we need GTM like tomorrow. Like, how do we get to that? He's like, we got to go raise our, our A, like we have PMF, but we have to go raise our A. We need to get velocity going. And he's like, what's the onboarding look like? And like, I could just tell he's like thinking like, 30 days or like, to get this to scale. And I'm like, yo, we can deploy an agent in like 40 hours. Like, as fast as you want to move, like we can do that. It's like, it's really just at your discretion. And well, I'm not talking about like one channel. I'm talking about like all the channels. It's just the same playbooks, like ported over. Like if it works for this SaaS company, it's going to work for that SaaS company. Right. And then the problem becomes like, okay, this is what's happening. And everybody's doing this. Like, we fast forward 12 months or whatever, 24 months. How do you create differentiation? Like, what is that? I don't know. I keep getting asked this question. And so I'm just like addressing it kind of like head on. I have no idea where this goes. I don't know where this ends up. I just know right now that like this is working. You can finally do this where like I plug in and the company is marketing itself. Like all of the technology exists for that. Now it's just building the systems and the operations around that, and like the standards for the agents so that they have like a caliber of work that they have to do too. So anyway.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like, is this where you see with I know it's what's so funny too, is you think about it, the life cycles have shortened. Right now, if you said where would you see the company in 5 years, it almost seems strange, because it's like, well, I think I'll have flying cars and all stuff like, like how fast stuff goes. But really, like, where would you see, even if you jumped 6 months based on what you've sort of learned over the past 6 months? Like, where do you see kind of Graft headed?
Yeah, I think we're a bubble. I think we're first in a bubble. Like everybody I know that's doing this type of work is like, they're like, this is on the horizon. And like, I think this is a shift that's going to take 20 years. Right. And then like by that time, there's going to be another thing that's the next thing. And, like hopefully I don't have to compete in that next cycle.
Yeah.
It's going to be gnarlier than this one. Right.
Yeah.
But I think with that though, like how I see this evolving, and just like based off of like what people are asking for and like what the market and what I know mainly is like, again, I know like go to market agents, right? Like that's like what we're doing. So, but I think that these companies, it's going to be just really hard to hire this talent internally. So you're going to have all of these organizations. And again, they don't want to buy, like we're seeing this more and more. They just don't want to buy a self-service function. They want to buy like an outcome. And then you're just basically building virtual employees for them. And I think that is more and more what's going to happen. Is like
also I think because the shift of understanding and learning is you to your point about not hiring internally, unless you have all neurodivergents that stay up all night, all the time. It's one of those that the company can't shift fast enough to be able to. All right, everyone, we're going to start training on this like process, and so you have to buy outcomes because the only people who understand how to do it, it's going to 3 months from now, it's going to shift when Opus 5 comes out, and it's just going to
And,
be
what the
like
capabilities
100%
are.
different. Yeah.
Totally. And we already see this, like, we ship a lot of what we're doing with like Minimax 2.5, super capable for the cost. It's unbelievable. Like the cost, if you just make that assumption too, like the cost for intelligence is going to like approach zero. Like we've already seen, 2 cycles of this where it's like frontier model gets released, like open source model gets trained off of derivative data, and they, fast follow 3 months later and they're at 1/20th the cost, right? And like that's basically like you're going to continue to see that same like thing occur.
Yeah.
I think that, like, I mean, that's the bet that we're making as well. And every time that the models upgrade, like we just see the outcomes that we can get them, like things that we can get them to do are just that, like it's a step function each time, right?
And with auto approve, you can even start to see the future a little bit of
Totally.
I'm going to give you everything that you need. Well, I've got agents that will end up doing the plan. The plan has been tested. The plan is bulletproof. I'm going to do a one shot, and this thing's going to go at it for the next 2 days, and then
Totally. I built a directory site like 2 weeks ago just to see, like, for fun. So it was when I was initially testing like Hermes. I was like, all right, can we just like have like go scrape every business in this category and just like pull out everyone you can find in the US. It's in like a medical space. Went and did that. And it's like, all right, like let's create an action plan to build out like a directory website that has like, this structure. And on the homepage, you can like filter by location and like those pieces. It needs to have a login. And then I want to like have it where it's like, they pay to have their listing show up at the top, so that like in SO geography, whatever. Right. And gave it that plan, like, dangerous permissions on Claude Code. And I'm like, go run. And it's like, I was like, cool, I'll probably, end of day, it'll probably be done. It was like 45 minutes later. It's like, this thing is completed, right? The agent to like collect the data like took time, but like the actual one from an output, it was like nothing to build the actual product. And I think that is like, it's a great, great fortune telling for like what is coming down the road. And like, I don't see this again, if you have, I'm really obsessed with like, can a company market itself, right? Like, like all of it exists, all the data exists, the intelligence exists. That's all you need.
Yep.
And then it's just like, how do I create that feedback loop based off of the action? Then the hard part becomes, what is the action that I want to happen? So it's like, it always comes back to human problems of like, okay, what am I optimizing for? Because then it's like, you're pointing like a nuclear weapon at whatever this thing is. And so it's like, okay, if you choose wrong on like what it's optimizing for, then it's that the outcomes aren't going to be what you expected. And so, anyway, yeah, I think for us right now, like week by week, it's changing, and companies, like, there's no way that they can move at the velocity of speed of this right now. So I think there's just a huge opportunity for for startups, to like go and build these types of, I don't know what you want to call them, like agents as a service, or like there's all these different terms. They're like service businesses are the new, like.
But if you're not diving in and breaking a bunch of stuff and learning, then it's going to be tough to catch up. You know what I mean?
I think it's going to be a rude away. We're just onboarding this company right now. Like this old boomer entrepreneur, owns like 10 businesses in his portfolio. The guy that is running Point, younger guy who's like technical, and like you can just tell he's like, I know this is coming, I have no idea where to start. And like that, if you just like take that and look at the entire market and be like, okay, like that is every person's feeling. How do I go and serve them, right? Like there's just so much to do within that. So I think also like on the personal, like there's things that are just like fun. Like you can have agents that are like, I mean, we've been throwing this around, like my fiance and I have like, can we get agents to like just start cold emailing like people in geographies, asking them about like things that are happening in their community, as like a way to do polling, right? So like polling, I used to like call and like do this thing. But like imagine like I've been in an email chain with this thing for like whatever, 20 messages. And then it
Yep.
asks me a question about like, some bill that's about to go through or whatever that ends up being. And like I have this relationship that's been cultivated at
Yep.
scale, like with this, right? Like what happens in that situation? Like there's these things that you can do now that are just like incredible, right? And like, I mean, we've been experimenting like with that. We've been experimenting with like, can I have like autonomous like news, right? Like where it's like, we started with like podcasts where it's like basically like we have an agent like research like a podcast category, or sorry, like say for example it's like e-commerce, and it's like, cool, go find me like weird e-commerce companies that nobody's like heard of but that are like growing quickly. Like one was like this like random mushroom company, functional mushrooms from like Canada or something. It was crazy, but they're like growing really fast. And we're like, okay, go find me everything you can about them, and I want you to write out like a monologue script, and then 11 Labs voice, put that in, and then we do an email newsletter on the back of it of like, basically promoting the podcast, and then you can put ads in the email newsletter, right? Totally autonomous, running on its own. I mean, like the list is at like 20,000 or something, and it's just like I don't know what any of this looks like.
I think what's
so.
going to happen, I see, is you're going to do this a few times, and then you're going to flip over on the VC investment side, but you're going to end up having these agents that sort of like, and you go, yeah, invest 2%. Yep, invest 5%. Like you just start like collecting all these pieces of companies
Totally.
just because of all the signal that you're getting.
Totally. I think now too, it's like you can just touch the data of these companies and instantly know the health of them. Like it's wild, man. Like if you unify all of the data, and this used to be a massive lift for organizations, right? Like if you unify all the data
The
into a
cost
single
of,
place.
was it Omni? No, what am I thinking of? Like,
Yeah.
like
Totally.
even the BIs that like for a startup to get into is like, well, I talked to one that was like, all right, it's about 30 grand a year to like get started or whatever. And you're like, wait, what? But you still need to bring in the consultants who end up standing it up, and they try and sort of, sanitize everything. And
Totally.
I mean,
Totally.
just ridiculous amount of money.
Totally. And this is going to become a large problem too, is like the agents are assuming about the underlying data. And so like, unless you're teaching them the ontology of the underlying data, it becomes a massive problem. So like a great example of this is there's like 96 tables in Facebook ads alone, and there's like hundreds of columns of like, in each of those tables. If you ask it like, show me link clicks, or show me CPC over time, right? There's like all link clicks, like add link clicks, like link clicks that are
iterates in
actually
Notion over every block.
Exactly.
Like
Exactly.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
maybe it like adds them together. Like it doesn't know, like, it's just, it's guessing off of its own training and like what
Yep.
it thinks that column title means in relationship to like what you asked. And so what you have to do is like, you basically have to like teach it like, okay, when somebody says this, they mean this. And then you can actually run like an eval program over the top of that, where you're giving the agent more context on like what the underlying data set means, so that in the future, like maybe to give an example, it's like, okay, maybe it tries 5 times to write this SQL query to pull in, the data that you're looking for. And like, that's like a failure, right? Like it's like, that's not quick. It's not doing, it's being very inefficient. But if I can show it like, hey, here's how to do that, and then basically have it test, it basically runs its eval program to like improve.
Yep.
When, a user asks for something that's in the shape of this is what they mean. Here's how to write the SQL code.
Totally.
And then it one shots it the first time. So you can get it, they can get more performant under the hood. And I think that's this whole other thing is the agent evals of like both the data and like the decisions it's making on, which is going to be a huge problem, because the worst thing that you can do is make decisions on bad data. Like that's why everybody is like, again, the AI BDRs thing, or like, I see so many people right now that are like, I just hooked up Claude Code to like the Facebook ads API, and they're like, look at everything I can do. And I'm like, I guarantee you the data that you're getting out of, like, if you're trying to do data analytics out of the Facebook ads API, and you're running a legitimate account where you're spending real money, I guarantee you that data is incorrect. Like you're going to be,
You drink from a fire hose and you don't even know what to analyze.
You're it's just, and they don't know, like they're not technical, right? Like it's like a marketer that's doing this. And so they just like, they're assuming that this is right. And it's like, that is not representative whatsoever of the actual like base data. So the information that you're turning that data into is entirely wrong, because like you're running into rate limits, but it's not telling you that. It's just like, yes, here's all the data. Or you're having like truncation errors when you're using some MCP where it's like, again, telling you it's all of the data, but it's not. It's just like page one because it has trouble with pagination. Or you're like, okay, there's like endless, challenges that happen from this. One we see all the time is they're basically like just stuffing all the data into the context window of these agents or like of these models. And they're like, okay, analyze this. And it's like, what? Like, like this is tabular data. Just
read War and Peace, and if you can tell me, like what's funny is with 4.7 coming out, with Opus 4.7 coming out today, I saw it do something really unique. Which I was actually working on something when the switch happened. I have a Webflow agent that goes into Webflow MCP into a few of our clients that we have helped sort of level up or build their websites for, and I connected the Webflow MCP in Opus 4.6. And it had that problem where it would try and go and take every little piece of every little page and figure out what was what. I did it today on 4.7 and it said, you know what, this is taking too long. And it fire crawled the whole thing on the outside and then said, okay, here's what we do. Like, it basically knew that it was just taking a dumb route, and then it went out on the outside and it read the pages from the outside, made markdown files from them, and then solved the problem from this, which is crazy.
It's crazy. It's like those are the things where it's like it's escape hatching itself in a way that is so like unexpected and exciting. The challenge with that though is like, how do you create safety in it? And so like this is something that like we're figuring out like in real time, right? Because it's like there's only so much you can do. But basically,
the repo wasn't organized well. I deleted it. I'll make a new one. You're like,
exactly. What are the limitations? So like we see this because we interact with a lot of API keys, right? Like it's like, oh, you want to publish something to your CMS, like we need to do that through the API key. And so how we're handling that is we basically like the agent is actually never touching an API key. We're basically storing it in like a secrets file that's local. We give the agent like a ghost key it thinks is the Webflow key. And so like when it's interacting and writing, the code that it needs, it's basically doing that, like using that key. And then right as the call happens, we're basically proxying in the real key so that like the agent is never like interacting with it.
Yep.
And what that creates is there's just like at least some. So it's like you don't have like who knows where this inference is going. Like, is that API getting slurped up? What is happening on the outside of that? And then the other things that we're doing is like we actually like remove the agent's ability to like use the web. We just like gave it like fire crawl, and then you have to approve like its ability to go out and do specific things, so that it's like again it can't get prompt injected from a random Reddit post that it reads, and suddenly your Mercury bank account information is now in
exactly.
So, anyways, but I think again these are the problems that it's like we're all facing, we're all trying to figure out, and like we're all trying to solve that are going to just be like trial and error. And I think that's also like the hard part for these companies is like they don't even know what the surface area from a safety standpoint for this stuff looks like, and we all don't. We're all just building like the best version that we can of this. But with anything where it's like if you're accessing the internet, like you are a vector, right? Like a human is too. Yeah. And so it's just thinking about it in that mindset as you approach this, like with agents, working on the behalf of businesses. Where I think it gets really exciting though is like what we're starting to see with these services that are like for agents. Like our friend is building this company that's basically like it's data for agents, right? Like, oh, you need
email inboxes for agents.
Exactly.
Like so cool. Like you have a Gmail box for your agent, and so then you end up running like Grok reports, and those come in via email, and then the agent can pick up that email and go, okay, I'm going to take all these things, which is amazing.
Exactly. And so I think that will be really interesting to see what happens. And like we're also like we want to experiment with this of like, can we like give an agent a credit card and like it has like a $50 limit, and like we're like go do this thing and it comes back and
all of a sudden you're like steak dinner $250.
Exactly. It was like but it was on sale. It's like all right.
Exactly. I saved you so much money.
Totally.
Yeah, it's a fun period. What would you say to someone like, so as a like typically I ask guests who are on, like if you were gonna sort of tell yourself when you were first coming up, or entrepreneurs, but I think what's interesting now with what you're pushing into is I would love to hear what your advice would be for, let's say, an entrepreneur that is either early in their journey or has an established company. They're sort of going through pre-seed or seed, but they're a founder, but they wouldn't call themselves technical, and they use Claude Code or ChatGPT, but like in the desktop or the web app, and that's about as far as they've gone. Like, what would your like? Okay, this is Cody's homework for the next month. Is you should go do what?
Yeah, I think that the most valuable, I mean, everybody's saying this right now, but like I'm just gonna parrot it because like I'm seeing it. Like I just had a friend who got hired at a company. He's getting paid like 650K a year, and like literally it's because he's a go-to-market engineer. And he's like, "You hire me, it's like I got 20 like workflows and agents behind me. It's like you're hiring a team, right?" And if you're a young person and you're like, I know I want to start a company someday. I want to try to get a job at one of these organizations that I can go and provide value to. The pool of people that know how to do marketing and know how to use like this tooling to actually like do the middle work for you is like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a handful, right? I can call them on my phone like that.
Yeah, it's like
So
essentially it's like there's 100 brain surgeons that know
totally,
how to do this one very specific thing.
totally. And
Yeah.
with that, like I think that it's going to become like more adopted. I think it's just going to become the standard as it starts to go through this ecosystem. But right now the arbitrage is that like if you become, they're calling it like a marketing engineer or go-to-market engineer, the GTM engineer has kind of evolved. Originally that was just like you were doing cold outbound, but now it's like, okay, you're doing everything, right? And like the marketing engineer is like, okay, you were just doing like paid ads management, but now you're doing cold outbound, and like it's
Right.
kind of evolving into the same role. But I think there's something in
The
this
same with
space.
design and development, right? You end up
Totally.
having, was Microsoft just said that they basically are taking people who do content and design and development, and they're hiring that one person
Yes.
and just
Yes.
fusing those things
Yes.
together.
And when you look back at like the people that always made impact, they typically had a combination of skill sets. They weren't like deep T in one thing. They were like deep T in like two things. And then that, like, an example of this is like the founder of Polaroid, right? Where it's like deep T's in a couple things. And like, that's what makes this like unbelievable company, right? And I think that is like what's happening here. Like if you can get pretty competent and like you can get so far now with Claude Code, like it's like, again, I just looking back, like I was like scrapping to get YouTube videos that was actually showing how to do stuff. And now they just like exist for literally everything, right? Like every tutorial that you like in a weekend, you could learn how to do paid ads, cold email, SEO, and also, probably like email nurture campaigns like that there. If you have that and you go to a company and you're like, yo, I can do this, but I can do it out of scale because I'm like, using agents for this. Like you are now like top 1% basically, right? Because there's just so few people that understand those pieces. Like and they don't know how to deploy. They don't know how to use this new tooling that exists. So
Yeah. Well, and I'm gonna give a little graph plug because I love it so much, but I also like this is a great example of, and I'm not an engineer by trade. Like I poke around with everything, and I want to understand everything. But when I signed up for Graft, there was a Saturday, not too long ago, that I sat down with a cup of coffee in the morning, and I hooked up Apollo, our two Stripes, QuickBooks, Brex, and PostHog Analytics. And by about 2 p.m., had a full dashboard command center of basically all of our cash, our burn, scenario modeling, all of the product analytics, but like all in one thing that only my co-founder Martin and I could log into. And I could click a button and download the markdown file for all of that scenario, and then drop it into Claude and go, what if? And I could what if forever. And these are things that normally as a startup founder would have been taking a bunch of different things and getting freelancers, getting specialists, getting, and so now essentially with Claude Code and Graph, I have a command center that I probably would be at least paying, $1,500 a month for whatever, plus having specialists and analysts doing it. So I'd probably be spending a couple $1,000s a month. That literally now this is running our business, which is crazy.
it's so like I'm building this product, so I'm biased obviously, but like the stuff I can do in it like would take me literally hours or be impossible like previously. Like I taught myself Looker Studio off of like YouTube. It's like I have to click 20 buttons to get this like filtering mechanism.
Oh,
I can
I'm
just be
glad
like,
we're
yo,
not
just
Looker
like,
anymore.
it's
I like Graph and
insane.
PostHog, by the way. So.
Oh my god, it's crazy. And like I think this is also something like the PostHog thing. You made me think of this, so I just want to piggyback off of it. The setup now is going to happen by these agents. Like I needed to do like we switched from amplitudes to PostHog. I was like, fuck, I don't want to set this up. And so I literally was like, here's the API key, just like do it. And it went and built out like what we needed. It had access to our code base and knew where it needed to like put the like correct
and
events.
PostHog is the best example, I think, of we actually went through, and I hated, like, I went through the Google Analytics, then I went to Mixpanel, and I had 2 consultants in 2 different periods coming, so we're going to take a while and analyze how all this is working or whatever. And I couldn't stay. I spent so much money on that. And then when I dropped PostHog in and just started watching the data over the next little bit, it's so fascinating to see how PostHog really is just a big SQL lake. And you can just ask it all the questions.
Totally.
And I think that's where, and that's very similar to Graph, right? That you're basically like, great, now I have everything in one place and we can ask all the questions. I just love that we're getting out of all these like expensive, overhead layers that were unnecessary. And now we can just get to the data to make the decisions.
Totally. And it's just the time to insight. Like we found this when we were just running the analytics product. It's like, how do we get the first insight to be as fast as possible? Like that was like our like metric of success for, activation. And when you think about it, like every person at your company right now, if you're listening to this, every person at your company right now has a data question that they wish they could ask that they like can't get the answer to currently because either there's not enough bandwidth on the data team, or like if they do put a request in, it takes 3 to 5 business days, and if they have a follow-up, it's another 3 to 5 business days. And if also the data team is always prioritizing whatever finance and the CEO needs, so it's like they're getting jumped in the line. If you unlock them to where it's like, okay, I can now interrogate the data that I live on top of to understand this.
I asked my Claude Code desktop, is Reddit still our number 2 refer? And it goes, hold on a second. And it checks Graph. And it goes, yep.
It's amazing,
like,
right? It's just like,
that's it, which is crazy.
Totally. Amazing, man. Thank you again for hosting me, and sorry again about this morning. And I
no.
deal with the dog, and then it was just like I was behind on calls, and it's the combination of all of that. And so,
this
anyways,
is like I think the life we've got is this shell game of being like a little bit over here, a little bit over there, a little bit over here,
exactly.
And like and everything bumps into place. Thanks for the time, and I appreciate it.